Hello, everybody. Welcome to Father Talks. I am your host, Mike D. I am here with Miss Valerie Greene, and Miss Valerie is a relationship counselor, mentor, and author. So I'm going to give Valerie the floor for a second because, I don't want to steal her shine.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Michael. It's
Thank
just a
you.
pleasure to be here. And yeah, I mean, I'm a coach, not a counselor. I always
Okay.
need to say that just for legal reasons. But my work goes a lot deeper than a lot of other coaches, not to compare. But
Okay.
relationships, as we know, are incredibly deep and
Right.
require a lot of emotional attunement, which we'll talk about. And so, yes, of course, I have done a lot of the postgraduate trainings that therapists do. So, it's kind of like, like they let me train in emotionally focused therapy, for example, and a somatic psychotherapy modality called Hakomi
Okay.
that is also open to non-therapists. But all of that to say, what I do with couples is I just help them learn how to be vulnerable with each other and learn how to transform conflict into a deeper connection, that they don't have to shy away from it. And with my
Exactly.
single clients, I help them to be able to have the courage to be more committed to the vision that they have of the love that they want to create rather than try to fit themselves into a pretzel to be who they think the other person wants them to be,
Right.
and to really date strategically to avoid situationships so that you actually attract the love that you deserve. So, that does require very deep work, of course, but not
Right.
always. It can be fun.
Right. Well, we don't, like I was saying, we don't get an opportunity to express ourselves enough, especially from a man's standpoint. We bottle a lot of
Hmm.
things up, and we end up in bad situations just because either we're not with somebody we can express ourselves to, or we don't know how to verbalize what we're going through. So now we get into an argument about something, or whatever it could be something small, but that argument really isn't anything to do with actually what's wrong.
Right.
You're just upset. It's just one more thing. And I want more men to be able to express themselves with their partner, because being able to have a conversation with somebody for me is probably the most attractive thing in a relationship is being able to have a conversation. It is by far, listen, I will tell every guy, every person that I've ever met, the most attractive thing to me about a woman is being able to have a conversation. You can be a
Yeah.
you can be a 20, okay? But can we hold a conversation? So and I just would like for more guys to be able to hold conversations with people because conversations are going to teach us more about somebody than, you know, just sitting having a coffee and, BSing, you know,
Right.
deep, meaningful conversation. So, but without, I'm going to let you continue for a second because I got a bunch of questions I want to ask you. Just, I'm extremely curious.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, ask away. I'll comment on what you just said first, which is that what I hear you saying is, the difference between BS and like a deep conversation is that there's several things I think that both men and women haven't been taught how to do
Right.
in order to actually have the kind of conversation that you're talking about. It's like that when one person shares something deep, let's say an emotion that you're dealing with or opening up about a problem that you're having, that the other person doesn't just jump quickly into either me too, I had the same problem, or trying to fix it right away
Right.
before actually, or they'll jump to a conclusion about what you said that maybe will hurt their feelings when they're not actually being curious. Is that what you meant? And like, so it's like those are landmines that really come up that we need to learn how to slow down and attune to the other person and what they're actually saying
Right.
rather than have a bunch of misunderstandings or have a bunch of tangents or get pulled into stories, that then turn it into a more superficial conversation.
Right.
And that is, I think, the art of connection that a lot of people don't learn. I certainly didn't learn it growing up, and in our culture, we're so much more focused on productivity.
Right.
And what's the point? What do you want to get out of this conversation?
Right.
And I also want to say that um I have a lot of compassion for men with what you just said, because with women we're also socialized to think that a man is supposed to be strong. Like it we kind of, I want to say, I don't want to overgeneralize, right? So I'm not
Okay.
speaking for all women here, but it's like, in a way, I kind of feel like, I want to apologize for like this dynamic that I think a lot of women put men into,
Right.
which is like, I want you to open up and be vulnerable. But then when you do, I can't handle it, because like
Yes.
I feel scared because
Yes.
you're supposed to be my protector.
Right. And
you know so it's like that weird double bind that women put men in. So of course I can talk about that and how to get past that, but I just want to like acknowledge that that's there.
yeah, and this is the thing, and I mean, I see it everywhere, So I've got female friends, I've got, obviously I have male friends, and I listen to people talk, and it's always, guys will say, man, I can't, I do all this stuff for my girl, she don't appreciate nothing, and it just, I'm just, I can't even talk to her about nothing. But then I listen to my female friends talk about, their significant others talking about that he never shares anything with me. I want him to be able to be, vulnerable, but then there's the but not too vulnerable. But
Right,
you
exactly.
can't have it both ways. So you either
Yep.
want him to be able to express himself or not at all. Because I don't, as a man, I don't think we know how to not, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna lean into it, you know,
Right,
and
exactly.
if I feel like I can't lean into it, I'm not gonna do it at all,
Yeah, 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 which
so
requires such a capacity on both people's sides to be able to handle all of the feelings and assumptions that come up.
right.
Because I think what happens with the other person is they get scared and then they don't know how to deal with their fear. And this is the art of how to have a deeper conversation is, are you able, I always like to have this um kind of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this concept that we have three brains.
I've heard it.
um I always like to have that in mind, only because it really helps to explain all this stuff,
Okay.
because it explains why we have this double bind to begin with. So it's like, just very quickly, we have like the amygdala or the lizard brain, which is always thinking about, am I safe, am I in danger, am I safe, am I in danger, right? And that's what puts us into fight or flight when we
Okay.
think we're in danger. And when we're in fight or flight, we can't be emotionally attuned. It's about survival. It's
Okay.
about, don't say that. Stop it. You know, what did you just say? No, you can't say that. Right. That's
Right.
the amygdala.
Okay.
That's the part of us that feels scared. And it's hard for men to understand. Alison Armstrong is a really popular relationship educator. I interviewed her for my podcast too,
Mhm.
and she does an exercise in her workshops where she has men raise their hand, like, when was the last time you felt unsafe? And it was like, maybe when they were on the battlefield, or
Right.
etc. Like something obvious. For women it was like walking in the parking lot. It's just, I don't think that there's a lot of understanding about what women mean when they say they feel unsafe.
Yeah.
But with so it's like a woman will say, I feel unsafe, in a conversation, a man will be like, what do you mean? What? He'll think she's accusing him
Right.
of like being physically unsafe, or he'll take offense to that because he's like, I'm not like attacking you. But it's like, women go into this feeling of unsafe because we feel too vulnerable, that we're not going to be protected. And it's like this, not that we need you to protect us, right? But like, for example, and this is actually, if people are interested in this dynamic, there's an amazing book about this called how to improve your marriage without talking about it.
Okay.
It's Patricia Love and Stephen Stonesy are the authors, and they describe this dynamic, all the research that goes into it, like about how men and women's brains are different. But it's sort of like, if I'm your wife, and I'm asking you to be vulnerable, What I mean is I want you to be vulnerable about how you feel in our relationship.
Right.
Like, how do you feel towards me? What could be better, right? Like, what's something that can be solved that maybe, either I want you to be effusive, like I love you, that's vulnerable. Like, you're the
Right.
only one for me, right? That's vulnerable. Or like, hey, this isn't working, but I want to fix it with you because I care enough about us
Right.
to solve it together. Like, that's vulnerable. That's what we mean. But men aren't necessarily upset about the relationship right now. They might think the relationship's fine. So like if a guy's disconnected, it's not necessarily about the relationship. Maybe he's worried he's going to lose his job.
Right.
And so if a woman's like, I'm wanting you to open up and be vulnerable, and the guy's like, well, I might lose my job and then we might be homeless, it's like, that makes me feel unsafe.
Right.
And
Because
then
he
I'm like, well, wait a minute, but what are you doing about it? Right.
right.
And it's like, then I can't just be present because my amygdala is like screaming that I might not be safe. So it's sort of like the whole book, How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It, really elaborates on the doing that dynamic. But I really just want to validate it. Then so that there's the amygdala. Then we have the limbic system, which is in all mammals, and it's where the attachment system is, and it is about a connection
Right.
and
How
whether or
we
not,
attach to in our relationships.
yeah, whether we're connected, whether we feel close, whether, I feel a bond with you, whether I feel emotionally connected. Um, and so if I have insecure attachment, then I'm also going to feel unsafe
Right.
with conflict. And so that's about really giving a lot of reassurance. I know you, I actually listened, that was the interview I listened to Bev Middleton about
Yeah.
attachment. And I also consider myself an expert in attachment. So it's like, um, when we are feeling unsafe because we're anxiously attached, and we're like, I don't know if you're going to be there for me, then the need is usually reassurance,
Right.
to feel safe. But it's like, you're not going to know that. You're not going to know that I need reassurance, and then I'm just going to sort of freak out if I don't get it. And then, of course, there's our cortex, which is like the part that makes us human. It's the smallest part of the brain. It's like literally this little teeny shell over the top of the brain. And that's the part that wants to grow. It wants to evolve. It's saying, I want you to be vulnerable. I can handle it.
Right.
I want to be closer to you. I really want to hear your feelings. I really want you to share what's real for you so I feel close. That's the part that wants to grow. But we don't understand that there's things you could say that feel unsafe.
Right.
That'll trigger these lower parts of the brain to freak out
But
and not
just
be able
hearing
to have a conversation.
right. But hearing you say, explaining when you say unsafe, I mean, because I'm gonna tell you, when you said unsafe, I'm like, oh, wait a second, what did he do? So
Right.
that was
That's
my first
right.
instinct. I'm like, oh, what did he do to make her feel unsafe? But it's not that kind of unsafe. And
Right.
those are the things that us as men, we need to understand and be able to, understand the difference when somebody tells us that. Because instantly, and because we're having this conversation, there's no reason I don't get upset because you're explaining something to me. But in a relationship, somebody
Yeah.
tells you feel unsafe, that your first instinct is gonna be like, well, what the F did I do to you? You know?
Exactly.
And then now something that isn't meant in a hurtful way turns into an argument because we just don't understand.
Yes, and I'm just validating that it's not going to make sense,
Yeah.
because men and women, and I also don't like to generalize between men and women because I respect the diversity among gender that
Right.
is now being legitimized, and at the same time, what the research in that book shows is that there's generalities for a reason, that in general, and it's not just biological, it's also the way men and women are socialized differently, where men are taught that safety is something that you're responsible for yourself. And like, we're just, I mean, I'm a woman, not a man, so I wasn't socialized this way. But it's not
Yeah.
like you would ever accuse somebody of feeling unsafe around them unless they're doing something
Right.
actively in that moment, or unless they broke an agreement, or breached your trust in some way that then you need to repair.
Okay. So
But with women, it's not like that. It's like we feel unsafe if we feel like there's something that we don't know how to handle and we're going to break down.
yeah, and see, and it's important for us to, again, to have these conversations so we start understanding. And I know that men, you know, and I'm speaking for myself, that it is not always easy because you genuinely want this relationship to work out, but you we waited too long, you know, sometimes to really sit down and listen to each other. When it had we have done this earlier, you know, it wouldn't have made it so difficult to hear what each other is saying. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because we spent so much time talking at each other and not to each other. You know, now when we really need to have a serious heart to heart about something, we can't because we don't know how to talk. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so first question for you then. So many people say they communicate, but nothing changes. What's the difference between talking about feelings and actually creating emotional connection?
Yes, that's such a good question. Um, I do think that talking about feelings is a important component in building emotional connection. You can't build an emotional connection without it, right? But
Right.
it's sort of like saying I'm eating a meal, but all I'm having is the bread without the meat in between or the vegetables. Like it's the foundation talking about feelings. Um, but there's a lot of, so I like to kind of talk about feelings in terms of emotional needs,
Okay.
or attachment needs, which are a subset of emotional needs. Attachment needs are ones really specific to either romantic relationships or parent child relationships or around, safety, protection, closeness.
Right.
Um, so uh, and with kids it's safety, with adults it's closeness. When a person's saying I feel unsafe, it's because they don't know with somebody who's showing up and providing, not doing anything objectively unsafe, then it's about our ability to regulate our nervous system,
Right.
which people don't necessarily have. So that's about the art of learning how to help each other co-regulate, which of course I can talk about. But I know I'm dropping a lot of
No, no,
concepts.
no. Hey, listen, every bit of knowledge is important. So please carry on.
Yes, yes. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm just kind of like connecting the thing I did say before to what I'm talking about now. But so feelings make sense in terms of needs. And I'm not talking about a need as in like I need you to change.
Hmm.
So needs are not strategies. Needs are not I need to do something or not do something, or I need you to do something or not do something. Needs are internal experiences. They're things like safety, connection, reassurance, respect, trust. It's something that you feel on the inside. You can't necessarily look at it on the outside. There's nothing I
Okay.
can look at on the outside that points to connection.
Right.
Cheesy Hallmark cards or whatever. But it's like it's a felt experience on the inside.
Okay.
And so if I say I feel sad and you say I feel sad, and that's like all we're like, okay, well, we both feel sad, then like you might feel a little bit more connected, but you haven't really addressed why do you feel sad, and then like what need isn't being met and how can we meet that more. It's not a left brain logistical problem to solve, which I think is where a lot of people get stuck. Well, what can we do to fix it? I don't know. And then you just get stuck because it's not a left brain logistical problem, it's a right brain emotional opportunity to really attune to each other's needs and recognize that there's always a win-win to
Right.
meet both people's needs so that we feel like we're on the same team. Because that feeling that we're on
Hmm.
the same team, which is another need, it's a felt sense. You can
Right.
feel it with somebody when there's that felt sense of alignment. Like we're looking at the problem together.
Right.
We're not like blaming each other. It's not your fault that I feel sad. I'm not saying you need to change because I feel sad or angry or disconnected, right? It's like I feel sad, you feel sad, we both want more connection. We don't know what to do about it. but can we agree that we're on the same team and maybe
Right.
brainstorm? And like now I feel more connected because we feel like we're on the same team. That's what actually creates that feeling of emotional connection, is that
Okay.
like I have your back, you have my back, which is more like, and it's so ironic because, or not necessarily ironic, but it's nuanced. Because I know that, if this show is, talking a lot for men, um, masculine energy, which both men and women have.
Right.
But men are socialized to have more masculine energy. Women are socialized to have more feminine energy. Masculine energy is more like solving problems in a left brain way. Well, what
Right.
can we do differently? What steps can we take?
Right.
What needs to change in our, let's open up our calendars and figure out when, like those are masculine questions.
Right.
Feminine questions are more like, well, what does that look like? When was the last time that you felt connected to me? What was different? What did that feel like for you? How do you feel that we don't have it anymore?
Right.
They're more like present moment being questions where you feel like I'm on your team and I got your back just
Right.
because I'm curious and attentive to know more about your internal experience.
So, okay. So when you're talking about women, if women express, they're expressing a need, they like, even in the unsafe situation. Okay. Men.
Well, I don't want to say the
Yeah.
situation's
Yeah. Yeah.
unsafe,
Just,
but they might feel safe, but
just
yeah.
men.
Because
Okay.
I mean,
When
and
we,
sometimes situations are unsafe, by the
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Like if there's abuse going on, or if
Right.
there's gaslighting, or like I don't want to say that there aren't things people could do to create unsafety. It's
Oh,
just
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, men by definition, all that I know, when if you come to me with a problem, you're upset about something, it's I am not listening. I just by like how I was raised, I want to fix whatever's wrong. So it's not that I'm
Right.
not listening, and I am fully engaged in what you're saying, but I want to stop you from whatever pain, or whatever distress you're going through. But I find that a lot of times, you know, women, you know, our partners say that, hey, he's not listening to me. He's just, he's always trying to do this. He's not listening. He's just trying to fix everything and not listening. But that is how we're built.
Yep.
You know, we don't want to see our significant other in some sort of distress, you know, and our gut reflex is to try to fix the issue,
Right.
So, but at the very same time, I've learned that, you know, what's it called? Mirroring, you know, learning to sit and actively listen, you know, but how do you change that in men, you know, when we're literally built to fix whatever's wrong?
Right. I know. I know. It's another way where I have a lot of empathy for what it's like for men. It's that video of It's Not About the Nail. Are you familiar with that one?
Mm-mm.
Oh my god. Okay, look that up after this. It's
Okay.
got like 2 million views or whatever.
It's not about the nail.
It's 2 minute long, and it's a hilarious anecdote about what you just said.
Okay.
Woman has a nail stuck in her head, and like man's trying to fix it, and she's like,
Yeah.
I need you to listen anyway. So it's
Okay.
hilarious.
Yeah. I will definitely look that one up.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that to validate you. Like,
Yeah.
yes, that's the thing. Um, and Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest um advice that I have for men in that way is that you also benefit from not seeing emotions as a problem within yourself.
Right.
So, in order to be able to see, because the paradigm shift here is that emotions are not a problem. Um,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
um, Now there are problems, and when we have problems, we feel emotions. So
Right.
but emotions are not inherently a problem. Um, Now, so the question I ask myself is, if I feel an unpleasant emotion, like, is there a problem? Because, like, of course, half the time there is a problem, right? Like,
Right.
there's like I have too many things on my plate and I have to prioritize, right? I feel overwhelmed. Like I'm frustrated that I'm running late and I need to, reorganize. I know those are two types of the same problem. But, like there's feelings and problems are connected in many areas. But in relationships, a lot of times feelings are not caused by a problem. It's caused by a need that's not getting met. But if you look at it as a problem, like, I think it really has to, it needs an example
Mhm.
because otherwise it's too esoteric. Like, let's take a common problem that couples have that in order to solve it, you have to stop relating it to it as a problem, right?
Okay.
But people think of it as a problem, but that's the point. If you're relating to it as a problem to solve, then you're going to look at, um, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not finding the right words.
It's okay.
You're gonna look at it from a right wrong lens, and then that right wrong lens is gonna make the other person feel blamed.
Ah, okay.
And so anyway, like I'll bring up the example. So it's a very common example. I think this is a good one for this. It's where usually the man, but not always, sometimes it's a woman who has a high powered job and needs space when she gets home
Right.
before she's ready to connect. Usually it's the man. Um, Usually it's the woman that even if she has a high powered job, she needs to connect about it
Right.
in order to feel like her partner's got her back. She needs to like kind of unload and process in order
Okay.
to then be able to relax. But sometimes it is the man, right? Um, but Alison Armstrong's research showed a lot of times men need what's called transition time when they get home from work to just have a break, not have like everyone running at them to solve the problems. Like,
Right.
I just need some downtime before I'm then ready to re-engage. Um, and so that's a really common conflict. So if you look at it as a problem, one person needs to connect, the other person needs space, and you're going to argue, well, this is a problem because
Right.
I feel really disconnected, and if we don't talk, then I feel like you don't care about me, and like then the other person's right, that's problem language, right? And the other person's like, but all I need is 30 minutes and you never give me what I need, and I just, I don't think that's too much to ask for,
Right.
right? And then so it's like that, it's confrontational problem language is like the way that we approach the issue.
Right.
And if we approach the issue with like, this is a problem that needs to be solved, sure, you can do that even if you're on the same team. Well, let's brainstorm solutions together. But it's like you're still going to be stressed out about it. You're not going to feel connected.
Right. So,
If one person's like, well, how about I, give you 30 minutes to connect later, but it's like inside their head, they're going to be like, she's so needy. And why can't she just call her girlfriend? Because it's like you're not really getting out of that problem mindset.
right.
So sometimes feelings and needs are about problems to be solved, right? Like who's going to pick up the kids from school? We both have commitments. That's a logistical problem. Now,
Right.
but it's an emotional problem. If you're like, I'm always the one to do it, I feel resentful. That's
Mm,
more of like, do you see the difference? It's like,
yeah.
that's where I'm like, I have to get out of the problem mindset and look at what are your feelings and needs, what are my feelings and needs, how can we be on the same team about it? And look at it as like brainstorming solutions, but the problem, we're looking at it together.
Right.
The problem isn't between us. We're not blaming each other for the problem. The problem's over there. So you have to kind of like get out of the problem mindset to look at what are your feelings and needs, what are my feelings and needs. Then you reintroduce the problem and look at it together.
Right.
But the problem's not between us is kind of what I'm saying. You
Right.
need to get out of this mindset that the problem is between us. And
Okay.
so how do you do that if you're feeling unpleasant feelings is looking at what are my needs, so the need for space and the need for connection. And the beautiful thing is that needs don't conflict.
Mm,
Space and connection don't conflict. They conflict if you're trying to get it at the same time.
right.
So, but that's the cool thing about, so this paradigm comes from a modality called nonviolent communication, which I also don't really like the name of, because I
Right.
tell that to people and they're like, I'm not violent, I don't need that. But Marshall Rosenberg developed it in the 60s during the desegregation movement, where there was a lot of violence.
Okay.
Um, and now there is again, but unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think we still need it, but more than ever, I mean, he wished that he had called it compassionate communication, because I
Right.
think people would be more,
Receptive
but
to it.
anyway, these people that develop modalities aren't marketers. That's the
Yeah.
problem. um, but
So,
but
right.
anyway, it's like, so he makes this acronym, which I
Okay.
love, called Plato, so that might be easy to remember if you like the philosopher, but whatever. So it's, if what you're wanting is a particular person, a particular location, a particular action, a particular time. So there's the time piece.
Okay.
Like, those needs don't conflict if we look at, well, how could we have them at different times? And then a particular object, then it's a strategy, not a need. So the strategy here would be time. Like, I need connection, you need space. If you're like, we both need it at the same time, then that's a problem.
Right.
Um, but if you're like, okay, let's go deeper. So here's the way where you have to get out of the problem paradigm and ask more present moment, feeling, I want to say feminine energy questions. So this is just the art that both men and women can learn, because women aren't really taught this either. We're taught a little bit, like, it's okay to have feelings, but we're not really taught how to not blame other people for our feelings.
Okay.
um, and how to really connect to, a need is an experience that I have on the inside. Like, how do I feel when I have that connection? What does that provide for me?
Right.
When, because that's the other thing that Alison Armstrong's research really showed, is that if you tell a man what that provides for you, that motivates him to listen a lot deeper, because men want to solve the problem.
Right.
So it's like, if I'm like, okay, I need connection, here's what it provides for me. When you listen to me about my day, that is what allows me to unload. It's what allows me to solve my own problems. It's what allows me to kind of like get out of my head about it and into my body. It's what allows me to feel like you care. If you don't take time to listen, then I have this idea that you care, but I don't feel it. If you really take time to listen to how my day went, then I experience your care. Then
Right.
I'm more likely to have an open heart and be generous with you, because I can feel that,
Right.
you know and so what about you? Like, what comes up for you when I say that? And then it's like, so it's present moment, feeling oriented questions that then get us on the same team.
Right.
Then you would open up about, well, then of course I would ask you, like, what is having space when you get home provide for you, so that I feel empathy towards your experience, and then I want to provide that for you.
Right.
Like, if you need that to recharge so that you could be more present for me, then all of a sudden, of course, I want that for you. I want you to recharge so you could be more present for me. And then the solution is obvious. Like, I'll give you space when you get home. And then, when does it really work for you to approach me and listen? So
Right.
that's a very common conflict. But if you look at it as a problem, then you're just going to argue about the problem, versus going deeper into asking, what's that like for you? What does that provide for you? What does that mean to you? What does that look like when you have it? What does that prevent you from experiencing if you don't have it? Like, what do you miss out on if you don't have it? Like, really understanding
Right. But
deeper.
under just listening to all this, these are definitely not skills the average couple would be able to build on their own. And if you're in a marriage, you're in a long-term relationship, whatever have you, you know, and you want to save this relationship, you want it to work. These are the types of things that men and women need to, I mean, I hate to say it this way, need to seek a professional's help, somebody who can help guide them. Because again, just by nature, we don't communicate well on, on a regular basis. And once frustration or, or anger gets in the mix, we don't hear anything that the other person is saying. No matter
Mm,
how right you are, we don't hear anything that that person is saying. And it could be a plea that I just need, some time with you, or I just need an opportunity to decompress. You know,
right.
we don't hear any of that stuff. We're just two people shouting at each other at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So,
absolutely. And
so
that
all right,
in and of itself is a problem. I agree.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And but us, like I said, we these are not strategies that we would learn on our own. You know, and some of us are too. I mean, some of us are too prideful to ask for help. You know, when
Mhm.
we really need it. You know,
It's
and
true.
this guy with two thumbs, it's taken me a long time to embrace some things in my life. But now that I have, I mean, I feel much better. I am nowhere near as stressed as I used to be. You know, and just because I've learned a few things, I've accepted a few things. You know, I've accepted I don't have to deal with a few things. At least I don't have to deal with those things by myself.
Yeah, which is
So
huge.
yeah. So all right. So for men listening who want to lead well in their relationships, but feel unsure how to show emotional presence, what does healthy masculine leadership look like, in love?
Yeah, that's such a good question. You're asking some really good questions. Um, and I actually love working with men too. I know my marketing is more towards women and couples just because that's who tends to come to me.
Yeah,
And speaking to what you just said, before the question, I think that a lot of the reason that I create most of my clients are just one person, whether they're single or coupled, because if the guy is too prideful, for example, or sometimes it's the woman that's too prideful and then the man seeks me out. But if one person shifts out of this paradigm
yeah,
of blame or just trying to solve the problem without getting deeper into feeling like we're on the same team first, um, then if that one person shifts into that mindset, it could also help the other person shift and make a big difference in the
right.
relationship. So I just want to say that because I agree.
No,
Like a lot of times, both people don't have those skills. Both people don't have the inclination. One person is too stubborn, which is why I love doing what I do. Um, but yeah, no, I think the question that you asked is one that I don't get asked a lot, and I love it. And because I think, and I feel very lucky to be married to a man who I do think is a really good example of a masculine leader in a
right,
healthy way, so I can really speak to that archetype. I don't want to pigeonhole men, because I do think that um, it's a full spectrum. Not all women want a relationship where they want a man to be a masculine leader. Some men and women prefer it to be completely truly equal, and in a healthy relationship you are still equals.
right,
It's just that one person chooses to lead and the other person chooses to collaborate, is how I call it. I don't even
right.
say follow, because that
Yeah,
sounds submissive.
yeah,
you know um but but I personally do consider myself a very feminine energy woman, and I want my husband to be more of the leader. So I'll talk about what that looks like in a healthy way, at least in my understanding, right? And I think, like I said, I think individual variation, everyone wants something different, and I don't assume everyone wants that.
right.
So what that means, and I actually think I want to bring it all the way back to that piece about vulnerability, because
Okay,
and what you said in the beginning, because I think that there's a difference between victim vulnerability and empowered vulnerability.
okay,
And I do think that that makes the difference, because leaders have to be vulnerable. If a leader is too distant and removed, then we have think about the leaders in history that have been the most influential, right? Like people will say Martin Luther King, or
yeah,
the original JFK, or like where they were vulnerable, but not in a victim way.
right. Okay,
Um, so I have a dream is extremely vulnerable. So it's, because I'm taking like the leadership archetype. So victim vulnerability is not a good leader, right? That's like, uh if I'm saying open up about your feelings and you're saying I might lose my job, there's a way to say that in a way that's empowered, or there's a way to say that in a way that's victim. So that means you haven't processed it yourself if you're
Okay.
in this victim stance where you're like, I don't know, I'm scared for us, I'm scared for me. That's not good leadership.
Right.
um that's vulnerable, and there's room for that in a healthy relationship. I'm not saying there's not, right? This is why I don't think anybody should be in rigid roles,
Right.
uh, in a marriage. It's really about being all of yourself, and the 80-20 rule, let's say, like. And I actually think the 80-20 rule is really great, because in our relationship I want my husband to be a strong leader 80% of the time.
Yes.
20% of the time he can fall apart, and like
Yeah.
I'll hold him, in
Right.
his victim vulnerability, and he credits me as saying like that I know how to say just the right thing to get him to rise up out of his depression in that moment and whatever. And it's like I think that's also really important, that we know how to
Right.
do that for each other.
But that's outstanding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And whatever, it's like I'm not saying that it has to be only 20% of the time. It's fluid, right? But
Right.
it's like, so if we're talking about what it means to be a good leader, that most of the time a way to say the same thing but with empowered vulnerability is that I feel like I have agency within myself to solve it. So
Right.
I would so that's the difference between victim vulnerability and empowered vulnerability. I still might be vulnerable, but I would say it like, you know what? I'm glad that you asked. I'm going to say something that might scare you, but I want to let you know I'm handling it.
Okay.
I might lose my job, and I feel scared about that, but I want to reassure you that no matter what, even if I do, we'll still be okay.
Right.
I'll handle it. So I want you to feel reassured, but within that, can you handle that I feel scared about it and I don't know how it's going to work out? Like, but I want to reassure you I'll take care of it, but like if you
Right.
really want me to be open, I feel scared. How does that make you feel that I feel scared? you
So,
know
but
so
does that, okay, so by me telling you that I might lose my job and I feel scared about it. Now, I've again, I watch a lot of, videos. I watch couples talk, how people interact. And similar situation, guy was telling his wife that I don't tell you, I'm not completely open with you about all my emotions because I don't want you, if when I'm nervous, then you're nervous or
Mhm,
then
mhm.
you're scared because of my
Right,
personal fear, and I don't want you worried that I can't take care of us,
right. Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So there's a, is there a, is there a best scenario, like how to explain whatever you're going through, without your partner freaking out?
Yes, yes, exactly. And um so that also has to do with creating context. I sort of
Okay.
zeroed in on that example, and that example was the one you used earlier about, or the one we talked about earlier, where like the woman is asking the man to open up about his feelings, so it sort of comes
Yeah.
from her.
Yeah.
But then he opens up and then she's scared, right? So
Right.
or about something that scares her, and then he has two problems: his own feelings and then how to deal with hers, right? So in that example, it's the woman who's asking the man to be vulnerable. So I'm kind of sharing like the way to handle that is, um that you can also, because a strong masculine leader knows how to look at a woman's look at a woman's feelings as not a problem. Feelings make sense in terms of needs. What do you need?
Hmm.
Needs are not problems.
Right.
You feel scared, you need to feel safe. What do you need in order to feel safe? Do you need reassurance? Do you need reassurance that I'm handling it? Do you need to just talk it out, and have me validate your point of view?
Right. And
Um,
there can't be one size fits all, for every situation. It's got to be like per situation, how you handle it.
yes, No, exactly. And it's women then in that case need to, if we're talking about corollary skills, right? If a woman's asking a man to open up and like he's then able to hold space for her feelings and ask, what do you need? That we need to know how to talk about our needs.
Right.
So it's both people that like can benefit from a feelings and needs paradigm rather than that there's always a problem to solve. Because what I like to say to my husband is that if he tries to solve my problem, that actually prevents me from feeling deeper into it because the solution is inside the feeling.
Right. Oh, okay. I did not.
Like the if he's like, how, like, what do you need? And I'm like really deeply feeling into it, it's like, oh, like then I have this aha moment.
Right.
If he's like holding space for me, that is more accurate of a solution than what he would have come up with.
Right.
So that's the skill of masculine leadership, to be able to like shine the light on the feelings of the woman so that it focuses her, so that she can really get deeper clarity about how to solve her own problem. That's
Right.
what a masculine leader provides. That's what a woman says. That's what she means when she says, I just want you to listen. It's like, I want you to ask more questions about what I'm saying so that
Mm,
I have the intuition to be able to solve my own problem. And that feels empowering to me.
right.
So
No, it's
that's
no,
that's more like
it's
leadership.
not a bad thing. I mean, we're getting educated here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's questions like, what do you need, and what would that look like, and what would that provide for you, and what are your ideas, and that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's not something that we're taught.
Right. Well, and again, men, we're not taught any of this stuff. And again, I'm 52, and in the last few years, I've learned so much new stuff that would have whew, saved me some headache, early on in my life, and it all boils down to communication, you know, two
Mm-hmm.
people being able to communicate equally, and both people listening to the other, you know, would have saved me a lots of headache, lots of headache, you know.
Yes.
So, and this is the thing, more men, and again, my focus is, to help men, you know, be a more understanding of our partners, be more aware of ourselves, you know, in every way that we can, because I was not raised to be emotional. I was not, I've grown up when I did, hey, boys don't cry, hey, boys take care of this, boys take care of that. There was never any mention of how you feel or, you taking any kind of priority, your emotions or whatever have you. So as an adult man looking back on all that stuff, me being raised that way has prevented me from, I want to say, being an effective communicator in my relationships. You know, while I mean I love extremely deeply, I have not always been able to express that, and sometimes a lot of those things come out and with, you know, I could care about something, but it comes out with anger because I don't know how to express it. you
Yeah.
know, and I don't,
Hmm.
and, unfortunately, I've, been in some relationships where I just didn't have a partner that I could talk to anyway. So even if I had the skills, I didn't have a receptive partner.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
because I mean, I want to validate that women aren't really taught these deeper skills either. We
right.
might be taught to feel our feelings a little bit more, but we really have not been taught how to listen to other people's feelings without.
Mhm.
A lot of women jump to fixing the problem too, or
Yeah.
then thinking that men shouldn't have strong emotions and blaming you for having them.
Right.
So it's really most of us that did not get a good emotional education.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just society, if that's, well, you know what? Let me take that back. I see things changing they are in a much better situation today for men than it was
Mhm, mhm.
20 years ago. When I was growing up, these were not options. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm hopeful, for my sons that, what, there's resources for them. My daughters can be, in a relationship, they talk with other people, there's more resources for people to get the help they need to fix a marriage that they want to stay in. You know, we just, there's never been tools, you know, or resources to get out there and help you do better.
Yeah. Which
So
is
this is amazing for me. Again, I try to learn as much as I can. I'm not an expert on by any means. So, I ask experts, people who know,
yeah.
and just, hey, let's get educated, and when people listen to this episode, I'm hoping that they take, hey, maybe I should reach out to Miss Valerie Greene, but maybe there's some resources out there for me, and if nothing else, maybe they take a lesson from this, you know, and find another way to talk to their partner, and maybe they don't get help and they find a way to resolve issues, you know, just by, simply listening a little bit more.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Um,
And also it's about how you listen to yourself.
yeah,
It's not always looking at feelings as a problem, but getting more curious about what do you need,
yeah,
and then it's like listening to other people better helps you listen to yourself better and vice versa. So I feel like it's kind of a work in progress. And
yeah.
I mean, I also want to say that like a good leader isn't just the things I said, but we're really focusing on leadership in a conversation. I think the traditional ways that make a man a good leader are more logistical is what
Okay.
most people think. And I mean, I agree with those ways. Like maybe the woman wants the man to plan the dates or
Yeah,
decide on like what trips you'll take or whatever so that she can just be in her feminine and not have to think about it. And I mean, I think those are great too. I like to say that in a relationship where one person's the masculine energy partner, the other person is the feminine energy partner, that
yeah,
the masculine energy partner leads logistically, the feminine energy partner leads emotionally, meaning
yeah,
that, we'll say she then appreciates and, it shares like, oh, thank you for doing this before she gives constructive feedback. And she's
right,
like, sharing her pleasant feelings and receiving and experience like sharing what she likes about it. And if there's something she wants different, she says that in a way where we're on the same team and things still feel good,
right.
which is what makes it the masculine energy partner feel successful in making her feel good so that he wants to lead her on more things. And like that's the positive feedback loop. So I mean, I
So,
want to just say I agree with that. I mean, I think that there's a lot of nuance to that. um it's
so
fun when it works.
yeah. All right. So final question. Okay. If you could leave men and couples with one truth about love that changes how they show up every day, what would it be?
mm, yeah. um so if we look at truth, I like to think of that very kind of cliche, but um in my opinion one of the best cliches, that that cliche that you could either be right or you would have a good relationship.
Right.
um so
I
like
pick my
that
battles.
that truth I think is a really poignant one, right? Because it's not about, and this is I think what a lot of this interview is about, it's not about being right. um it's about attunement. It's about I like to say feelings first, facts second,
Mm,
which
okay.
is another kind of thread underneath what I said. It's like don't try to solve the problem right away until you address the feelings and needs. Right. That's a lot of what I said. So it's like if I'm arguing my point of view and the other person's arguing their point of view, that's the time to slow down and say, what are you feeling and what are you needing? To get out
Yeah.
of that right wrong paradigm, because when one person wins, the relationship loses.
Right. So yeah, yeah, because I don't get into arguments to lose, but I have learned that it's not important for me to always be right. So
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Or
there's
like, I mean, maybe, she'll be more likely to say you're right if you validate her feelings.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. I haven't been
'cause
right a whole lot of times in the last 20 years, but the couple times that I've won some fights, I celebrate them often. So
yes.
remember
Yeah,
that
and
one
I mean,
time?
it feels good to be right, of course.
All
But
right.
it's getting out of that mindset is, the advice that I have is like, look at it as like, what are you both feeling and needing, and how could you be on the same team?
Yeah,
Rather than having the mindset of being right. Like
yeah,
that's, I think, the truth to embrace here.
outstanding. Miss Valerie Greene, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. We've got to have some more conversations. I'm pretty sure I'll get some messages after the show airs, and guys will be, well, why didn't you ask her this? I need to know. So,
I
um,
know, and I was a little esoteric in some of these
yeah,
teachings, so feel free to ask more examples and case
yeah,
studies and all that. Like, I like
yeah,
to make
not a
things
problem.
practical.
Um, do you have a website that you want to share? People can
Yes,
get in
yes.
contact with you.
Absolutely. So my website is coachvaleriegreene.com. So if you put my name's on the screen. So it's VALERIEGREENE. So there's just coach in front of that as
Okay,
my website. And I do have some free gifts to share. I actually have 4. So there's like a free gifts tab if you go to my
okay,
homepage. And so for couples, I have a video training called How to Stop Fighting and Start Connecting that really explores a lot of these principles. So I think that's the one that's the most relevant. I made it like 10 years ago. So I think I still look the same. So feel free
right.
to
Hey, not a problem. Listen, and listen,
let me know.
everybody likes free. So, also, you know what? What was I want to ask about the book before we close?
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a book. It's for single women, so not
Okay,
necessarily the
that's okay.
niche for this audience. But I really think it speaks to a lot of things we said, especially the chapter about how to inspire a man to commit, because it's all about attunement,
Okay,
to his feelings and needs. And so the book is called The Commitment Roadmap,
the commitment
and
roadmap.
it's basically for single women who keep attracting situationships and they don't know how to attract someone who actually wants the kind of commitment that she wants. And so how to
Right.
really part 1 is really getting clear about your values and vision, because I think a lot of people don't know how to date strategically and they look for what they want rather than what they need.
Okay.
Then part 2 is healing your blocks to intimacy, your limiting beliefs, your emotional needs, how to really self-regulate. And then parts 3 and 4 are the outer work, with how to really navigate pacing the relationship, not rushing into things, not giving your heart away before guys earned it.
Right.
And step 4 is how to inspire commitment, which is the most relevant to what we talked about today, because it is all about learning this art of collaborating
Right.
rather than arguing, and how to be the emotional leader and how to really attune to him so that you create this beautiful, thriving partnership that lasts a lifetime.
Outstanding. Miss Valerie Greene, thank you so much for coming on the show. Please come back again. I'm pretty sure there's way more we can get educated on.
Oh yes, well thank you so much. And yeah, you
Yeah.
can get my book on the website too. It's under the products tab, so
Well,
feel free to
I'm gonna post the
check it out.
website and everything about Miss Valerie Greene in the Facebook group chat. So, or on the Facebook page. So, I am excited, to again to get this episode out because again I learned a lot, and I
Okay.
think this is one of my favorite things that I get to do now is I keep learning new stuff every week from somebody. So I appreciate your time very, very much. Tell your husband thank you for letting me borrow
Oh
you
yeah.
for this past hour. Okay, but have
He's
a
busy
great
that
day.
way, so
Yeah,
he's fine.
thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. This has really been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. Thank you.